How much do you know about Antarctica? Welcome to the Everything Antarctica podcast, where your hosts Matty Jordan and Jonny Harrison will answer all of your questions. We'll talk to globally recognised experts, discuss current affairs, news, and ultimately highlight why Antarctica should matter to you. Come on a journey as we unpack everything you've ever wondered about the world's most extreme environment. Hello and welcome to the Everything Antarctica podcast. I'm your host, Matty Jordan, and once again I'm joined by my co-host, Jonny Harrison. This week we answer the question, what seasons are there in Antarctica? And we'll debunk the myth that it's all white on white with no real seasons. So let's get started. Jonny, do you want to tell everyone where Antarctica is, what seasons we get down there, and explain how they work?
Good question, Matty. As we spoke about in episode 1, Antarctica is in the southern hemisphere and follows the calendar seasons of the rest of the southern hemisphere. The first day of summer is often considered the 1st of December, with the summer solstice around the 21st, 22nd of December.
So that would be the same as the shortest day in the northern hemisphere, or equivalent to their midwinter, and happens to be the longest one for us down here at the other end. So the winter solstice for us around the 21st, 22nd of June, which would be the longest day in the northern hemisphere. So we work on opposites due to the tilt of the Earth.
Exactly. And then autumn or fall is the start of March, and spring starts in September. And these are a nice transition from the 24-hour polar day and polar night, and vice versa.
Yeah, crazy to think of that, at the South Pole, they only get one sunrise and one sunset every year, which is the same that happens in the North Pole, but there's not too many people that camp out there to actually see that. But the South Pole, yeah, very visible.
It's pretty ridiculous when you think about it, eh? Even when you've been down on the ice.
Yeah, even at Scott Base, which is at 77 degrees south, where you and I have spent a bit of time, the sun rises on the 21st of October and doesn't set until the 20th of February, giving us 4 months of 24-hour polar day. And conversely, on the 21st of April, the sun sets and doesn't come back above the horizon for another 4 months.
Yeah, that's not to say that it's dark the whole time when the sun doesn't come above the horizon though, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we do get periods of twilight as the sun starts coming back or starts going south. So it's not just like the sun sets and then we go instant darkness, or the sun rises and it's instantly light all the time. We only really get about 3 weeks of true midnight darkness, would you say, or midday darkness. And then that reverses on the other side, where we get lighter and lighter until it transitions to 24 hours of sun up.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think when you're hanging around in the height of summer and go out into the midnight sun and watch it sort of circling around above your head, and then conversely to go out into the midday, midnight in the height of winter. So yeah, it's a pretty crazy thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about seasons in a meteorological sense, but when we talk about Antarctic research stations, things are a bit more vague and a bit different, and they vary between different stations. So how does that work?
Yeah, so when we talk about Antarctic research seasons, these are typically broken up into summer and winter seasons, and the starts and ends of these will vary depending on where in the continent these stations are. For us at Scott Base, summer usually kicks off in around early October, and it concludes at the end of February, which is when the winter season technically starts. And then the winter season rolls through to the end of October once handover is complete and the summer crew are all ready to run the base.
Yeah, and for other stations, depending on where they're located and the access they have, the seasons there will vary considerably. I mean, for us, we have access via aircraft, which means that we can get people in and out relatively easy, but some other coastal stations that get resupplied by ships, it's a little bit harder for them. Yeah,
interestingly, with the Australian Antarctic Division, most of their stations are up near the coast, and they access most of the with the bigger populations anyway. They take most of their people in on ship, so it's quite a different situation to us just jumping on a plane and flying down.
For sure, yeah. And speaking about populations, Jonny, how do the populations vary between summer and winter?
Yeah, so in summer, the population swells to about between 4,000 and 5,000 people, and then in winter it drops down to about 1,000 people on ice. So in summer, most of it's due to the science research, so lots of scientists, lots of science support going on, and then typically in winter, most of it's just kind of running the bases and keeping the stations ticking over and catching up on any of that stuff that needs to get ready to go and prepped for the next summer season.
And the majority of that science happens in the summer because the weather is more settled and we get 24 hours of daylight, and typically the temperatures are a wee bit higher, so it's just a much more pleasant place to operate.
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to be hanging out in the middle of winter flying around with helicopters and things like that where it's dark.
Definitely not, no, and super cold as well. So when talking about temperatures, what sort of typical temperatures would we get in summer and winter? And actually, what's the coldest month and the warmest months typically?
Typically the warmest months are sort of January, and then the coldest month is usually August, so just after that sun starts coming back up. At Scott Base, the summer temperatures get up into the low positives, and then through the winter period they get down to sort of the negative 30s, and that's kind of ambient temperatures, and then of course you got your wind chill on top of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So what was your favourite seasons while you were down?
For me, I think the sort of July, August period was my favourite. I also enjoyed March and April in those shoulder seasons, and both for different reasons. I think towards the end of winter in that July, August, we get a little bit of daylight because the sun's starting to come back up, lots of nice twilight. We get to experience polar stratospheric clouds or nacreous clouds, which are largely confined to the polar regions and are just super special. Light up the sky, it just looks like there's an oil slick in the air, which is pretty cool. And in those shoulder seasons, we get the transitions between day and night, so we still get the auroras, but we also still get a little bit of sunshine as well.
It's a really magical time of year, isn't it? Because you end up essentially having these prolonged periods of twilight, which it just makes it seem like the twilight goes on for the entirety of the day. It's just absolute magic, isn't it?
Yeah, and the colours associated with that as well. I mean, we can see a few mountain ranges and a couple of islands from Scott Base, and when the sun's starting to come back and you get those long shadows, it's just beautiful yellows, oranges, reds, purples, pinks, just everywhere, and it's so special to see.
And then when you couple that with the fact that there's a whole lot of ice kicking around, so then it just lights up the entirety of all the ground, is all just reflecting these beautiful colours that are in the sky, right?
Definitely, yeah. And I suppose that's a contrast from what many people think, that Antarctica is just plain white all the time, but there are colours everywhere. We just don't see the green from trees and other things like that, but yeah, there's no shortage of colour. Absolutely.
And even in the middle of winter, when you end up getting a bit of moonlight, it's kind of hard to sort of see the contrast between things because it is a lot darker, but then you get the added benefit of all the auroras, right?
For sure, yeah. The full moon in winter was pretty crazy because you get to the point and you can walk outside without a head torch on, and the moon seems to be guiding your path and lighting up the foreground. So yeah, they're pretty cool when the moon's out too. Yeah,
it's pretty stunning, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the height of summer is kind of nice because you can sort of walk around 24/7, go out on the pressure ridges and things like that, and yeah, get out and have a bit of an explore.
Yeah, lots of recreation that happens in summertime as well, from going on walks and bike rides and skiing and things like that. But yeah, I think that's probably worthy of a full episode in itself as well, don't you think?
No doubt it will be at one point, so
Definitely.
We'll get to that.
So just to summarise, in Antarctica typically we just have a summer and a winter season. There are a spring and an autumn or fall season that happens there as well, but the majority of activity happens in the summer and the winter. The summer supports a lot of the science because it's 24 hours of sun and the temperatures are much more comfortable. And the winter season, typically only a small number of people that are out staying at the research stations to make sure that they're ticking over and doing a little bit of science there, but not as much as what happens in the summer.
Anything else to wrap that one up? I think that's pretty well it.
Yeah, again, I think we've probably missed a few things, but we'll touch on those in a future episode. And yeah, if there's anything else that you guys want to know about seasons, then let us know and we'll circle back around and cover it again.
Yeah, flick us a question if you've got any more, and we'll jump further into it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that. That's it for today's episode of the Everything Antarctica podcast. Thanks for listening. If you want to find out more about us as hosts, you can find us on Instagram at Matty K. Jordan and at Jonny Harrison NZ. We're also on socials. You can find us at Everything Antarctica. This episode will be released on all streaming platforms and the long-form video will be found on YouTube. Check us out wherever you listen to your podcasts.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating. This will really help us in our mission to make this podcast as good as it possibly can be. Please share this episode with your friends and social networks so we can spread the word to more people.
Until next time, stay cool.